Hello everybody, and welcome to another editing production vlog thing for PPG's Hardcore. It's been a while since the last one. I didn't do one for Terraria Season 2, so I'm going to actually do Terraria Season 2 and MineZ Season 2 in this video. Little combo pair thing. And yeah, so it's been a sec. We went through 2 whole seasons. We're coming up on a new season of Minecraft. And the show has basically been, revived as far as like from planning to right about now, for about a year now, which has been really cool. Like we set out to do 3 seasons, this year, essentially, starting with Terraria. So we were thinking Minecraft Season 5 counts as last year, so we would do Terraria Season 2, MineZ Season 2, and Minecraft Season 6 this year. And we're gonna do that. We are definitely on track. Season 6 will be out on time. And it's been pretty cool. Like, it's sort of a risk. We invested a lot into the all like new assets and stuff, and there's actually a lot more still coming for the upcoming seasons, and and for the future. And I don't know, it's really nice that everybody's really been enjoying it so far, or they seem to be. People are watching it and they're getting engaged and they're yelling about things, and that's good. We'll go back to Terraria Season 2. So Terraria is an interesting beast, I think, in general. Going into Season 2, not only had I never played Terraria for not more than 30 minutes, I actually hadn't seen Season 1, because I was into Hardcore, but I never liked Terraria. So I as per my job, I wanted to make sure I knew what in Terraria was dangerous and what wasn't, and what sort of things the audience would see through and what they wouldn't. And there's like a range that you can play with in between what the players are experiencing, what they expect, and what the audience is expecting. Because in Minecraft even, and this happened in Terraria, people literally will count blocks for if I do cliffhangers and stuff. They'll if someone's gonna fall, they're like, oh well, I know that they're not gonna die from it or whatever. And as much as I'm not getting that detailed, there is kind of a language there, like a visual language that says whether or not something is dangerous. So I started off the season by playing a good amount of Terraria, which it was interesting. It actually gave me a ton of ideas for why Minecraft is not that great of a game, actually, which is maybe a discussion for the future. But I got pretty into it, and I did 1 full playthrough, around the time that I had started working on the season, because I watched Season 1, which oh my god, I'm so happy we have better audio, because I can't watch old Hardcore anymore because the audio is so terrible.
Shine potion, what does that do?
Yo, the pots are mine. 420 blazing pots, come here.
Luca and Luke, it's gonna be pretty confusing.
Luke, and you can call me Reese, it's fine. Either way, Luke 1 and Luke 2, whatever.
So I went back and I was aware of how everything ended. So going into Season 2, it was kind of interesting to play it a little bit more directly, as a sequel almost to Season 1. So you to begin things, I teased, that we'd have a returning guest and a new guest, and at the end of Minecraft Season 5, which was fun because people were kind of guessing who it might be and stuff like that. I think most people correctly guessed that the returning person was Proton John, and then people assumed that the new person would be someone related to John, which is interesting because a lot of people were thinking Chugga Conroy, which is not that there's anything wrong with him, but we had Lukigen on the show, and it was cool because she's our first woman who's been on the show at all. We haven't had any women on Hardcore up until that point, and And that's something that's really important to me to rectify. And it's not that, obviously, like, it wasn't intentional or anything of Austin or anybody else to be like, oh, like, hardcore is like a guy show with guys on it or whatever. It's not like overflowing with masculinity or whatever. But, you know, it just so happened that Austin built the show off of his friend group and off of people on YouTube, and, you know, a lot of people in our community that are in, like, you know, especially like in looking at normal boots and hidden block, you know, it's all men. So it was important to me to try and find a woman who would be interested in the show, who wanted to be on the show, who would be a good fit for the show. It would be fun and funny, and I think like Luca did an amazing job. Definitely like finding this like friendship with Dean early on was something that was super cool, because as much as I definitely cut a lot of their nonsense, it was very funny, and like it did have this particular brand of humor that, you know, during the split up kind of colored that part of the split, and going into editing and everything and setting the pacing for the show, it was fun to sort of look at, like, you know, these two different sides. What do these two different teams look like? You know, what might the audience feel about them? You know, it's important, like little considerations like that to kind of give people identities and things to root for in the show. And funny enough, there was like nobody died in the split up, which was bonkers, frankly. Although, you know, after having played Terraria once through and then again through while I was playing or while I was editing, I realized like 7 people is they really have no business. Sorry guys, but they really have no business losing. They really have no business losing Terraria, which, you know, a lot of people in the audience obviously were like pointing out to us and stuff. It's like, oh man, like, you know, even 3 people for Wall of Flesh was plenty. And as you saw, you know, that's exactly what happened, is they destroyed like every boss that they came up to. But, you know, one of the big issues with Terraria, outside of, you know, from an editing standpoint, the screen's really big. Like, it's really zoomed out because it's 2D, and there's tons of, like, enemies can come from so many different places and whatnot that they you know, you want to play with max resolution and everything, and max zoom out. It makes the UI really tiny. So we zoom the camera in. I say we because, you know, this was the decision that Austin made for season 1 way back when, and I kind of just was like, okay, well, that makes sense. We'll run with that. Some people wanted to see the hotbar and everything, but like, it was too much. It was just too much on the screen to, you know, be parsing all this information, like, as the editor, to have to go through and recut all these things, because not everybody's resolution was the same. So like, even if I had like a you know, if I keyframed like this is like the quote-unquote hotkey or hotbar cam, I would have to readjust that for every zoom in on or every person's perspective when I change cameras. And it just, it unfortunately, like, it's not time effective to do that. But I think long term it didn't really make an impact on the show. But what did make an impact on the show was like the seed. It was really, I mean, according to them, and having you know, and obviously as an editor, I would mostly agree, it was not a good seed. And as, you know, we did the post-show for Terraria 2 where everybody talked about everything, so we've actually covered a bunch of this stuff. They all went through and they talked about it. That was a lot of fun to get everyone to kind of reflect on hardcore and really catch up for like 5 years of not really getting to talk about hardcore as a group. But as we talked about, like, the desert, the thing that happened in the desert with the sandstorm and the antlion chargers.
Behind!
Jesus Christ!
Fire!
This is really bad!
Where like nobody died, which was amazing. An amazing thing was, it was such a huge high point for the season in terms of like action, but it just super affected the players. Like, everybody was afraid of crossing the desert. They never crossed the desert until like episode like 17 or something. Like, it takes them forever to feel like they were geared enough to go that direction, when, like, having played through Terraria, the desert's not actually that big of a deal as long as you don't let stuff, you know, pile up on you, which obviously, you know, as I tried to indicate in editing, Jeff actually goes to the left of where they all are in this like pool, and he spawns stuff from the left in the tunnel that would go into the underground desert area. He spawns stuff from that side while they're fighting stuff from the right side, and that's why there was such a a cavalcade of enemies to fight suddenly. But outside of that, I mean, like the desert's not that big of a deal. But it didn't matter, and so that set this pace for a really slow season. I mean, I probably cut about 6-8 hours of Terraria 2, which might be, that might seem high, but they wanted to gear up, and they felt like they weren't getting enough drops, like trinket drops, through adventuring, like through surface adventuring or through cave mining and stuff like that. So they opted for fishing, and I made a lot of jokes about like, fishing being sort of boring. The team fished. They fished a lot. There was much making fun of Dean, because he's Dean. That said, it's about time we moved along, wouldn't you say? like with Jeff's death reveal, which I still can't believe people weren't mad about. The problem was there's fishing, and then there's like 45 minutes of fishing between the fishing you saw in the episode before Jeff dies and the cold open where Jeff dies. Like, I cut a lot of fishing between that, and I didn't know how to really connect the two outside of just like a narrating thing with like this twist, ending basically.
I wonder if I can get some people.
What? Jeff! What? Jeff!
And then Jeff died. And people were okay with it. I was like, wow, okay, cool. I'm glad that worked, because it was definitely something that, was a necessity, but also was a stylistic choice. And I liked it, but I didn't know if other people would like it. I've never done it before. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening in hardcore over the next year that has never been done on this show. And ultimately, like, this show is going to grow. It's going to be really cool because we're doing it so much more often that back then, a new season of hardcore comes out and it's been a year. It's like, wow, we're getting a treat. Like, it's been 9 months, it's been a year, it's been more than that. We're getting to see everybody back together again, and it was a treat. And we want hardcore to be a treat still, but not in that way. Not because you're deprived of it, but because you're excited for it. Which seems to be how people are reacting to it. Like, it's not just like this famine dissolving gift from on high. It's like an exciting show that you can predict, for the most part, when it will be around. Suffice to say, like, we want to try new things, and I want to push, what the show can look like and what it can feel like, and that cold open was part of that, but also just cutting a lot of stuff in general. Like, I talked to Jeff, who was the previous, or Space Hamster Jeff, who was a previous editor, and edited season 1 of Terraria, and, like, he didn't cut much at all, according to him, but they also didn't really fish that much in season 1. In season 2, there was a ton of fishing, at multiple points throughout the season, because they would get back and they wouldn't really know what to do, or they'd be waiting for somebody. There's like a whole thing where Luke goes on like a 40-minute adventure by himself, which I summed up in like a single screen, and I wish I could have shown it all, but he didn't talk through the whole thing. He was just doing his own thing on his own. He had like streamed a bunch of Terraria like prior to that and had gotten really good at the game. So it's kind of funny, this cold open sort of represents this like passing of time that you don't really get to see, but I think it had the effect of people just understanding that suddenly like Luke was better at the game, which is cool because he needed to be. They probably, who knows how things would have gone if Luke hadn't gotten better at the game by the end of Terraria Season 2. So all in all, I mean, like, working with the pacing was tiresome, and I was really worried I was going to screw it up, but like so many people said that, that this was like one of their favorite seasons, which was incredible, because I mean, like, privately I was like, oh man, I don't know what's going on with this season, like, I can't tell if it's good or whatever, but I think it's because, like, when you have to cut a lot, you get distracted as to what it actually looks like. But like, going back and watching it fresh, like, man, once we get to the dungeon, and it's so exciting, I think, from then on. I was really pleased with the spike effect.
By the way.
You're staying on spike!
Oh god! Oh god!
How that ended up looking and feeling, and the fact that, I mean, it was really, I really had to do it just because Dean died. He died in such a, like a flippant, just like, oh, he's gone, there goes Dean, I don't know.
You combine it with a
Obsidian.
Oh no!
What happened to Dean? I guess he's dead. Just like, because it was just nothing was happening, which was the case for most of the deaths that season, which was a lot of fun. But it was, you know, it's difficult to contextualize that as dramatically as season 5 of Minecraft, where like some of the deaths were so exciting, and like the whole of the Nether in season 5 of Minecraft was nuts. It was an amazing adventure. It was so exciting and like so dangerous. Suffice to say that like that spike effect was so much fun, and it really was just so that it was clear that Dean was dying, because I didn't have his feed, so I wanted a visual way to represent that he was like dying, taking damage and whatnot, and it was very just like it was so, you know, it was just really gruesome, I guess, which is what I wanted it to be. And then lastly, last thing I wanted to talk about for Terraria 2 was the ending, which is so much fun.
Well, that's a sucky way to end.
Freaking ending, so stupid. So I was at Austin's house, I think, filming for ARMS for the main channel when they were doing the ending. It took like 4 recording sessions to do Terraria 2, which is ridiculous and unprecedented. And they finished it while we were there, and like they're just complaining. I'm like, oh man, they must have lost. And then I read what they're saying, and it's like, oh, they won, but they're not really happy about it. And you know, in case it wasn't clear what had happened in the video, so earlier on, I considered leaving this in to contextualize and foreshadow this ending. Full disclosure, I forgot about it, but I also couldn't think of a way to kind of slide it in because of the way that text works. But they never mention the fact that the goblin invasion has begun. It shows up in a text box while McJones is in the bathroom. And so they never bring it up, so I didn't really have a nice way to slide it in there without it being really obvious what was going to happen. And so they beat the wall of flesh before they hadn't gone back to base since the goblin invasion began. So the goblin invasion begins once they arrive, and they had got into hard mode already, and so all these hard mode enemies were spawning in the goblin invasion, and they couldn't do any damage to them because Terraria's hard mode is such a ridiculous concept in general in terms of pacing and power acquisition, that it was like, of course they were gonna die. I mean, that was just ridiculous. It was bonkers. And so they were very upset with the way it ended, and we're like, okay, well, why don't you guys just, like, Austin and I were like, yo, that's amazing. It's amazing. It's hilarious. It's dramatic. It's like, oh, like we won, but we didn't, and like so soul crushing. As I hope I conveyed in the actual ending, but like Mick Jones in particular wanted to shoot like a you know, a good ending, which I think is really funny, because if you go back and watch the quote unquote real ending or fake ending, but that looked like the real ending, I cut it like it was seamless, but it's really not. Emotionally, you can tell that they're like, yay, we did it, because they're, you know, having to fake this feeling and stuff. And like Luke is even like, I don't even know what to say, and it's like, yeah, because we're making stuff up. But yeah, so they wanted to do like a fake one that was nice, and that kind of, and that so that they would be able to foreshadow that we might go and do a hard mode season of Terraria, which we might do. And I mean, full disclosure, we might do that, we might not. It's something we've talked about, but it's, you know, it's a whole thing. And like every year Terraria gets older, and there might be new games that we want to pursue. Who knows? You know, that's why we don't put stuff in cement too far out. But obviously the real ending was ridiculous, and they were destroyed, and it was soul crushing, and it was very fun, and I liked it. So yeah, Terraria 2 was cool. It was interesting. Working with all the camera angles was a pain in the butt. Not angles, but like the zooms. Like I had like 18 presets for like camera spots. It drove me nuts. But I'm glad that people ended up liking it, because I was very worried while editing that the pacing was just too wonky. But that being said, on to Mine Z Season 2, which, you know, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll just do that in a second video. I'm gonna do it right now, like little. I'm gonna end this and then make another one. But we'll just call it quits. We'll wrap this up, and y'all can, if you want to check that video, you can check that after this one. It'll probably be up like a couple days later. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed Terraria Season 2, and I'm looking forward to if we go back to Terraria again, or maybe Starbound, which is on the table. We gotta do the research, we gotta see if it'll work, we gotta play it. Part of the whole thing with Hardcore was that these were just games that they played together naturally, and something that they did all the time. And then it's just like, oh, let's just have this. Then they came up with this idea, and it worked really well. So it's really important to me to preserve that natural fun and mix of knowledge and familiarity with the game. That if we are gonna play a new game for Hardcore, that at the very least, like Austin and maybe some other regulars, or maybe new guests, or new cast members who might be specific to a game, which might happen, get familiar with it and have a natural experience with the game. It's like, especially Austin, since he is sort of the MC or / host, as it were. So new things will happen, definitely, but it's just a case of like, we gotta put the time in. So hope you enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed this, and check back for Mindsy Season 2 video vloggy thing in whenever. I don't know, like I said, a couple days.